Hey guys, this is Lala Legacy and welcome back to another episode of SeaBed. So, let's just jump right back in. What's so different about me? The difference is that your symptoms don't seem to affect your life in any negative way, at least as far as I can tell. What do you mean? What do you think are the main problems with hallucinations? I cocked my head to the side. For example, let's say a patient keeps seeing bugs crawling on the walls or crazed killers chasing them through the streets. That causes them to get startled or even start running even when nothing is really happening. If that keeps happening periodically, well, you can imagine how it might become difficult to lead a normal life. That's what I meant by negative effects. However, in your case, it sounds like you've spent at least 2 years leading on an ordinary life, despite your condition. And that's true. Also, not only did you not realize there was something wrong with you for 2 years, but neither did your acquaintances. I don't believe a massive difference in perception, such as seeing a person who's not there could go unnoticed for long. As I've explained, hallucinations are false information interpreted by your mind as genuine. When you're looking at Takako, your eyes should be fixed on an empty space. When you hear her speak, you react to sounds that aren't there. Do you think no one would have noticed that for 2 whole years? Especially when you actually have conversations with her. She had a point. Now that I thought about it, my 2 colleagues seemingly showed no signs of finding anything wrong with my behavior. Narasaki regarded me in silence. I realized that Narasaki had not seen me act that way either. And according to her, there were no physical factors that could have caused me to act this way either. From her position, it might even be plausible that I was making all of this up. I'm not lying. I know that. I know you. You're not the kind to make things like that up. Narasaki's expression turned somewhat more mellow. Well... Well, I suppose it's possible you simply never had any conversations with Takako when the other 2 were present. That can't be true. I have memories of all 4 of us talking. I may have been having conversations with her, but they certainly couldn't have. In that case, perhaps you act normally when you're in front of them, the way you would if you understood that Takako was gone. I don't know. Are you saying my memories are incorrect? Most likely. In your head, there's a delusion that Takako is still with you, and it keeps overwriting your real memories. I considered Narasaki's words for a while with my gaze fixed on the floor. Soon enough, I heard her chair creak, which made me raise my face again. So, let me repeat myself. Are you sure you want to get rid of these hallucinations even though they don't seem to interfere with your normal life? She continued without waiting for my answer. For example, there are people with alleged psychic powers that can see ghosts and auras around people. From the perspective of psychiatry, whatever, that's a condition that should be looked at, but from their perspective, it's not something they necessarily want to be cured of. That's because neither of those cause severe problems during their normal lives. In a way, your situation is similar. Inside you, there seems to exist both the office without Takako that you share with your colleagues, and an alternate one with her that you keep to yourself. Besides, I couldn't find anything physically wrong with you either. So there's also the possibility this thing might go away on its own eventually. I felt like making a sigh, but I held it in. Also, what she said about the psychic powers, I mean, some people are like that, but, yeah. Science has been coming out with a lot of crazy stuff lately that proves that some people are actually psychic. Still. Oh wait, whoops. Still, if there's anything that can help cure me, I want to try it. I'd rather not worry about suddenly starting to talk about things that don't make any sense to my colleagues, and seeing things that no one else does kinda weirds me out. Narasaki broke our gaze as she fell in thought for a few moments, then looked back at me. Over that time, the pen in her right hand moved from between her thumb and index finger, traveling all the way to her pinky in wide arcs. Then it returned to its former position the same way, almost like someone had rewound a tape. Well, it's not like everyone always sees the same things anyways. I furrowed my brows, unable to understand what Narasaki meant. When I was a kid, I told a friend that a flower he drew in art class had weird colors. But my friend thought those colors were beautiful. Her flower mainly used rich colors like red, blue, and purple. But for whatever reason, she used achromatic colors like brown and gray to color a few parts of it. It honestly looked pretty creepy to me. But to my friend, who likely possessed a different interpretation of colors, it looked very charming. Narasaki looked around and pointed at a decorative strawberry on her table. For example, we could both agree that the strawberry is red. However, there's no way to tell if the reds you see and I see are the same. There's no way to express such a difference in words, and it causes no misunderstandings either. I think you're losing me. Huh? Really? I returned home, took a shower, and ate yesterday's potato salad leftovers for dinner. Then I slumped into the sofa and began watching TV. The news commentator kept blabbing on about unrelated things instead of introducing the actual news. I kept absent-mindedly staring at the screen as I hadn't really paid attention to all the details of what happened and why. I realized I only remembered the opinion of the expert they'd brought in. I began my search for a less tiring program, and after a bit of flipping through channels, settled on the weather broadcast. How was that less tiring? I thought about my time in the clinic. Narasaki told me that she needed some preparation for the hypnotherapy, so I was sent home right after the explanation of my test results. Give us some thought before our next appointment. According to Narasaki, I'd forgotten the very thing that caused me to hallucinate. Both that and my memory loss was apparently some sort of self-defense mechanism against a mental trauma. Takako's disappearance was so shocking, it made me forget how it even happened. If the hallucinations were simply caused by not having Takako in my life anymore, time could easily solve the issue. Still, shock and stress being the cause just didn't sound right to me. Takako was the most important person in my life. I'd do anything if there was a way to make her come back. But neither she nor I have wished for nonsense like this. As I returned to the clinic, I found Narasaki staring at her notebook. What are you reading? She gave me a glance and said, It's a record of some of my old patients. As I sat down, Narasaki closed her notebook and stuffed it into a drawer. You said my hallucinations were special, but how do people normally start seeing them? Narasaki answered with an aloof, Many hypotheses exist that pertain to hallucinations, but there's still a lot we don't know. The most accepted one is the dopamine hypothesis. Your nervous cells secrete too much dopamine in the synapses, and it makes the electrical impulses in your brain go haywire, showing you hallucinations. There's another hypothesis that hallucinations occur when your self-awareness drops. When you wake up in the morning sometimes, there's a short period where you don't remember who you are, right? It's something like that, basically. The hypothesis states that you lose the ability to differentiate between things happening in reality and things happening inside your head. Well, those are the most common cases anyway. How do you treat them? In both cases, you've got do away with the cause first. Okay, there are many things that can cause dopamine excess, but in most cases, it's induced by drugs. Most of the time, you can take care of that by simply taking medicine with dopamine antagonists. As for the drop of self-awareness, it's usually the result of stress after a strong mental trauma. In that case, you first have to elucidate the concrete cause and solve it for the patient. It sounds pretty complicated. Don't worry about it. Your case is different, and besides, you can leave all the complicated stuff to me. Narasaki gave me a smile. I wonder if determining the cause will also make my hallucinations disappear. Everything has a cause and a reason. We'll start from clarifying those. Everything had a reason. It was something I heard Narasaki say before. Actually, I think I heard her say something along those lines multiple times. And I agree with the idea. I think my symptoms have a reason too. I told Narasaki what I'd been thinking about since last night. I think I've mistaken the date of Takako's disappearance to make sense of why they'd both be in the office at the same time. That has to be it. But I'm still not sure why my hallucinations happened in the first place. Even if her disappearance is an incredible shock to me, I doubt I'd want to deceive myself just so I wouldn't have to face it. I just wouldn't do something like that. So I want to remember what really happened and figure this thing out properly. Narasaki nodded. You might end up remembering something unpleasant, though. I tried imagining what it could possibly be, but nothing came to mind. Putting that aside, though, I was more scared of living my life seeing things that weren't real. If it's related to Takako, I can't allow myself to just forget it. Narasaki picked up the 5 yen coin from the desk. Are you really going to use that? Narasaki made a silent smile as she attached a piece of string to the coin. I'll use hypnosis to bring out memories from your subconscious to the surface. However, there's no guarantee they'll be real memories. There were cases when a hypnotized patient started talking about being kidnapped by aliens or their memories from the previous life. The brain has a hard time differentiating between real memories and illusions. So, if something like that happens, what are we going to do? I'll ask you questions. Then, I'll try my best to lead you to the answers we need while you're in an unconscious state. So, it's all up to you, basically? Yup. Don't worry, I'm actually pretty good at this. Are you ready? I am. I sat down into a cozy armchair, almost lying down. Narasaki came closer and told me to relax. Then she told me to watch the coin. As it started to slowly sway, she began to talk. Try remembering that trip. I focused my thoughts on the last trip I had with Takako. A street paved with stones, brick buildings around me. Takako and I are walking together. A street paved with stones, brick buildings around me. Takako and I are walking together. I felt the nostalgic scent of a town I visited a long time ago. I was walking behind Takako, who kept looking left and right. This looks like Paris a little bit. I could hear the cool sound of running water as we continued down the stone-paved street, surrounded by tall stone buildings. At the end of the alley, we found ourselves in a small square at the very center of the old town. There was a giant fountain here. Marble sculptures lined the wall behind the fountain, with all sorts of engravings on its edge. In the center stood the ruler of the seas, Neptune, surrounded on each side by the fertility goddess Ceres and the goddess of health, Sol. Water flowed from the legs of all three, trickling down to the huge puddle below them like a waterfall. Takako already had 2 coins in her hand. I hope I don't miss! Is it even possible with such a huge target? Just try not to hit anyone like you did at Asakusa. The small square, half of which was taken up by the fountain, was filled with people. A group of workers pulling a cart packed with large boxes, people resting on the stairs, a couple sitting on the stone handrail, seemingly more interested in each other than the fountain, and a group of tourists listening to the explanations of their guide. Takako turned her back to the fountain and tossed the coin backwards. The coin, painting a beautiful arc against the blue of the sky, plopped into the water, vanishing from sight. Did I get it in? As I nodded, Takako's face lit up. She's just so proud of herself. After taking a handful of pictures in front of the fountain, I grabbed Takako, still reluctant to leave, by the arm and left the square. Where are we going next? As we entered the alley neighboring a gelato shop. Oh, okay, it's Italy. Takako placed the camera back into her bag and pulled out the tourist booklet we bought at the airport, spreading the map that she kept inside it. Then she checked the compass key holder that was attached to her bag. The main attraction today is obviously the cathedral, which is here. And we're here. Which means we gotta go there. Takako showed me the map and pointed at the alley to the west. You're interested in churches and cathedrals, right? Oh wait, no, this is still Takako. Whoops, you're interested in churches and cathedrals, right? After checking out this temple and that square, we can cross the river and head for the Grand Cathedral. Takako pointed at the pictures in the booklet as we walked. I heard a rattling sound from behind the corner next to the shoe store. Whoa! Takako jumped out of the way of a yellow tricycle that suddenly appeared. The tricycle, its cargo filled with red and pink flowers, creaked as though expressing some sort of discontent, then swiftly disappeared beyond another corner, leaving only a faint fragrance of flowers in its wake. But that is all the time that I have for this episode, guys, so if you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up down below. And if you haven't already subscribed, by subscribing you're becoming part of a legacy, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!